Say hi to Gemma.
You have like 2 days, Potangos. Relax.
Something chat to.
It's still too early.
Nah. Reload it already. It's not too early.
For what now?
Wilds.
Wilds.
Shit, I missed.
How does that make you feel, Bob?
Why? Do you secret?
Yeah.
Click it, cat. Click it.
Don't.
Click it.
He's a furry.
Click it.
Chat or
Would Lechon be? Would Steve be a scaly because?
No.
it's a vor
It's a it's a developer. By the eye of Mama. Ash, you're dying.
Trying not to.
Try harder.
I thought you were supposed to be good at WoW.
Whenever I didn't. Whenever I was gonna die in a video game, I would stop being bad and started being.
It's that simple, folks. Just stop being bad. Whatever you're doing to be bad, just do the opposite.
Earn it.
They didn't. Matter. They know that I have kissed them goodnight.
Again!
Hello, everyone. Steve kissed you all goodnight. Ba-da, 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 ba-da. Okay, we're getting started here in just a minute. It just keeps saying that it's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, and I'm like, why? Like I haven't done anything to it. And it shows to me that it's streaming at 60 FPS. So, like, I don't see that there's any issue. Yeah, see, and I'm looking at the metrics right now. They're all the same metrics as they were before. But now YouTube is claiming that the stream is completely healthy. So it's like, when I see stuff like that, I just assume that that's YouTube at that point. It's like, that's not my widget or anything like that. That is literally just YouTube live streaming sometimes doesn't cooperate. Which just makes me, like, irrationally angry. I say irrationally, but I guess it's, like, very rational. Okay, chat, let me get the tweet out. And what is going on? Is Chrome doing this bullshit again? Sometimes Chrome, like, it'll sit there and it'll go like, oh, hey, because you haven't updated in a long time, I'm just gonna, like, stop loading web pages. It's like, Jesus, come on. Okay. And now it's back to claiming that it's not receiving enough. YouTube people, I'm sorry about this, but I'm gonna, like, I'll leave the stream live, but there's only so much I can monkey with this. So I'm gonna say that if you're, like, not enjoying the stream or something, feel free to come on over to the Twitch side. Sorry about that. YouTube is seemingly, like, kind of shitting the bed on me today. There's just not a lot I can do about it. Let's see. Okay, grabbing the sauce. Like I said, I don't really know why this stuff happens. It's kind of weird. Because, like, now it's back to being completely fine. Okay. Let's get this party started, chat. Ooh, wow. That definitely had a bit of a hiccup there. Here's today's artwork. Go give the artist, Yamaneko, some love. One of his older pieces, but still a classic. OBS doing its thing again. OBS is, oh, like, if you're talking about that, that's usually because, so that chat can understand, right? When in OBS, you have a ton of scenes. Like, to make this a little bit clearer, right? I can show this to you. This is my old OBS, because this used to be my streaming computer. So it's like, you have, like, a ton of scenes. Mine is so freaking, like, cluttered now with all the, like, newfangled stuff that I have that it is extremely resource heavy. And so in order to, like, switch from one scene to the other, it doesn't play nice unless I have a preview window already open that's preloaded the scene. So if I sometimes forget to do that at the beginning of stream, that's how that happens. It's really weird, but it is what it is. It's because I have too many assets loaded into my OBS. It's like, it's not a common issue, I will say, but it is an issue that I face. And part of it's because, like, this current scene that we're using, there's actually a lot more to it than most people realize. Again, I don't think everybody necessarily understands, but, like, so for instance, if I draw up here, do you guys see the shine on the border of the screen up here? That is a special effect, and it was very hard to do, but it required a lot of, like, trickery to get that to happen. And so the issue at play with that is that it's resource intense. So, like, this particular scene in general is actually very, very resource intense. Straight up, you know, it's got Aurelia on it, and she's completely mirrored as if she's a VTuber model. It's got me with my webcam. It's got all the extra stuff. So, also, are alerts off? That's a good question. Let me see. Shouldn't be. Hmm. Yeah, I show it as being on. Trying to make sure there's not like something else there. But yeah, it looks like it's on to me. So I don't know. The only way to tell would be to have another alert, but it be what it be, chat. Okay. Too much ass? Yes. Is Santa Martha good? Yes, extremely. 28 hours and change to go? Ah, yes, you're referring to that thing that's happening Friday. Chat, you have a little bit over a day remaining. Basically, end of the day tomorrow, this event should be over. So if you guys haven't done anything on NA, make sure you go do it. This is your last call, in effect. In the meantime, I'm going to keep farming the fruitful plains. Pokemon Day? No. Niet. Need to redeem all my Choco still. Otherwise, I've been done for a while. Yeah, the chocolates are my deal. And god damn it, I'll probably try to get that done at work tomorrow. Because I actually did get a lot of my work done today that I needed to. So I should be relatively clear for the week in that regard. Doesn't mean I don't have other work to do. It just means, like, I shouldn't have a bunch of stuff hanging over my head. No, I haven't gone over anything yet. For NAMP shop and Grail casting as well. Yeah, thankfully I did the Grail casting. I was unsure if I did it in January, but I'm pretty sure I did. I like, part of me was like, crap, did I skip it? But I went back and I checked and I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I did gain the 2 Grails for that month. But it was one of those, like, it was just kind of out of sight, out of mind type deals. They've kind of alleviated the current situation with Grail casting because they gave out a ton of new, and I'm talking JP specifically because NA I'm still way far ahead, but on JP they gave out a ton of the coins. So that alleviated the need to have to roll out your FP for a while. Plus they added the 100 spin. So it's unlikely that it will take me as long to actually, like, farm out coins for Grail casting, even if I have to go back and start doing it again. So at least for the time being, the entire situation with Grail casting on JP is completely like alleviated and there's no issues. But yeah, it's just one of those deals where it's like, because of that, I was so used to always having to like kind of start it early and get ahead of it so that I didn't like have to wait till the end of the month to do it and go like, oh crap, I don't have enough time. So like now I'm like lazy with it. It's really weird. It's like, I don't have to do this like right away. There's no like stress. I can get to it whenever I have the time. And then like I kind of forget about it for a little while, which is honestly a good way to have it. Like the way that they had it before was really bad. So like I said, they absolutely fantastically fixed that side of things. And for someone like me that likes to play the game to its fullest, that was one of my biggest gripes with FGO. I've said it before, but it's like it was actually the least fun aspect of FGO to me, was having to roll out my FP every month to like tediously in order to make grails. It was just annoying, unfun, and a just overall bad and unpleasant experience. There was just a ton of micromanagement. You had to do a ton of like sifting through the UI, and it was not a good thing for the game that they were making you do that. And I think that's something that, for better or worse, I don't know whether or not the devs realized it, but they have addressed it regardless. Finally run out of my coin stash, heavily debating Grail casting. I mean, you should definitely Grail cast. Because, like, especially if we're talking about, like, 3-star and lower stuff, like, there's really no, like, thing you're going to use that for anyways. So it's not like coins have a use after the 5th append, after a 120. And if you're not going to 120 a unit, then you go like, okay, then do I actually really need to do anything? And the answer is no. Like, there's nothing you even can do with the coins other than use them for Grail casting. So, in my opinion, do it. Use them. But I do understand it's like, okay, if you're out, then you have to roll FP, and that's annoying. And I agree. I think that was why. Like, it's one of my biggest gripes with the game is that we had to do that for a long period in time. I do think that's one of those deals where, like, NA should get the 100 spin faster than JP does. In fact, I think we should get that, like, now, because it's not even a factor necessarily of Grail casting. It's anybody that feels the need to roll out their FP probably freaking hates that experience. Other than like brand spanking new players, it's just not a fun thing to go through. Yeah, we're getting new news on the upcoming Pokemon game, I think. And so that's why a lot of Pokemon fans are excited. And then we have Monster Hunter Wilds on Friday, which, like, everybody else is super excited for. I'm just, like, kind of chill about it all, because I feel like, since I know the way that Monster Hunter works, and I know that, like, there's going to be low rank and high rank, and that's it. Like, it's just going to be the base story. I'm like, yeah, it'll probably take us a little bit to get through, but once we get through it, then we're not going to have anything to do for months on end in the game, other than just like hunt more or like level up all of your weapons or something. And I'm like, honestly, I'll probably play through the game. I'll probably have a blast with it, but then I'll probably like just set it down and go do other stuff, because I'll just wait for there to be more content with it. In 3 months, I'll be out of FP though. Well, see, it's funny you mentioned that, DL, because in 3 months, NA will have another lotto. It's interesting how that works, huh? But yeah, that is the thing. If you don't do enough boxes in a lotto, you'll eventually run out. I talked about that back when we first did the calculations. You need to do something on the order of like 550 boxes, a lotto, I think, in order to subsist. But that assumes that you don't gain FP from any other source. And it's like, I think within reason, the number is probably far under that. But yeah, I do think that it's still probably a pretty hefty number. It's probably somewhere north of 300 boxes per lotto, and that's assuming a 2 lotto year. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of rough, right? Like, I think your average person doesn't get anywhere close to that amount, and therefore it's why, like, something like the Grail casting issue for someone like me that's sitting here trying to do everything and trying to make sure I do it every month and get the most out of the system, it's a huge issue for me. But for your average person, they probably don't even deal that much with Grail casting, either because they just don't like the way the system works because it is tedious and annoying, or because they simply don't have the resources to partake in the system. That is to say, they don't have the FP to roll out in order to get the coins or anything like that. So I think 1 lotto a year is good or a bad thing. I think there's multiple ways you can approach it. I think from the player's perspective, every player would tell you it's a bad thing. I think that is the players speaking in their own self-interest. So looking objectively at this, like removing myself from the equation and trying to like look down on the situation from above so that I can see both the player's perspective and the dev's perspective, I have to wonder if for the game, it's a good thing to keep running 2 lottos a year every single year, given that we've had kind of a slower pace to events, given that we have kind of had, a more veteran and aging population for the game's player base, so that I think a lot of people at this point have accomplished a lot of their goals in the game. If you keep having 2 lottos a year, most people are going to get to the point where they're just not going to need to farm the lottos anymore. And then what do you do, right? Like, does that reduce player engagement somehow? So I think that's something to consider, is maybe the devs are doing it for a reason. But it could also be the flip side. Maybe instead of the devs doing it for a reason, it's instead just that the devs simply do not wish to give you those free resources. Maybe it's that even like more innocent than that would be, because I don't think that's very innocent, right? Would be that maybe instead the devs just simply didn't have the time. They couldn't fit it into the schedule. So I think there's numerous reasons for why the devs would or wouldn't do it. But I think at the end of the day, I look at it and I ask myself that question, and I don't know the answer as to like whether or not it's good for the game. I literally couldn't tell you because I don't have the data in front of me. And to be frank, nobody probably other than LaSingle does. So bummer for FP stockpiling. Yeah. So it's like, we'll just have to see. In the long run, I think that they'll still continue to do 2 lottos a year, but that thought of like, what if they were transitioning to a single lotto a year type system, that thought has crossed my mind. I have already like wondered about that myself. I assume that this year is the fluke until proven otherwise. Because frankly speaking, other than the short year in which FGO started, FGO has had 2 lottos a year. Like literally every single year since its inception. So that was the first time ever that it hadn't happened. And in fact, in one of the years, we actually had 3 lottos. So I guess you could argue that somehow this is the like the payback for having 3 lottos in 1 year in the past. Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I definitely understand that for new players, lottos are absolutely fantastic, right? So it's just a weird in between. It's like, what do you do? Do you run the risk of it takes new players longer to like get the resources they need to get their accounts really online, but you don't piss off your veterans? Or do you like keep kind of flooding the veterans and they just don't participate anymore and they kind of like get bored and don't log in, and then it ends up breaking their whole streak, and then you lose those players, as opposed to like, hey, now the new players have a harder time, right? Like, I think it's a seesaw, and they have to find some kind of balance. So Da Vinci Lotto was too OP. Yeah. Are they? Because new players can't really farm lottos as well. So that's another interesting idea. And experience has shown me that while common sense would dictate that your statement is true, it isn't. That new players have a tendency to be much better farmers in a lotto than we give them credit for. Like it's wild to me because I would not always assume that to be the case. But apparently it usually is. And I think this is logically due to the sheer like breadth of capability that exists in the game now. There's a lot more powerful supports. A lot of people have meta stuff on their support lists. And a lot of new players are rolling in with already a pretty like well set up account due to frankly both better onboarding and I think just in general better quality of guides at this point for new players. Because I think old new player guides were really bad at like actually teaching players how to play the game. So I think when you start to look at all those factors, it actually is a lot easier for a new player to you know at least be able to do something like say the 90 plus node, even if it's not the 90 plus, right? But even if all you did was the 90 plus node, and maybe if you didn't even 3-turn it, you could still get a lot of mileage out of that, and you can still get a ton of stuff done and a ton of stuff farmed. So that's where it's like, yeah, I also would like to think that new players can't do it as well, because that's what like the old school thought process was. But nowadays, I think it's actually a lot better. New players starting with waiver, yeah. So it's like they usually have some sort of meta support themselves already. It doesn't feel like actual new players are much in a place to profit off of them. Well, I guess it really depends, right? Because if you look at it this way, like the longest in general that you go without a lotto is about 9 months. And this really depends on like how long they go between lottos. So this is the longest that you'd go, right? Chat, at 9 months, you can absolutely farm a lotto. Like if you started the day after a lotto ended, you could easily, within 9 months, have an account capable of farming a lotto very well. I'm going to say the issue is more like people in the like 1 to 6 month category. These are the people that are much more likely to struggle in a lotto. I think over 6 months, you're usually pretty good. Like usually after 6 months, your account is already like really beginning to take shape. I think it comes down to how informed the new player is from looking around. Yeah, and I do agree with that. I think if you're the stereotypical new player, you don't interact with like social media. You don't interact, at least for the game, right? You don't interact with any of the communities for the game, and you just play the game. This game is probably very difficult to figure out, right? And that, if anything, is probably a testament to the game, is that because it is so terribly explained, it does force a lot of players to actually educate themselves, which means like going and looking up YouTube guides, going on Reddit, again, joining communities of like streamers and stuff in their discords. I think that in general is something that I've noticed across the board with FGO. And I think a lot of that is because this game does a actual shit job, right? Like it does not explain mechanics to you. So if at that point you see a lotto coming up and you go like, everyone that I keep seeing is saying like good stuff about this lotto, you know, like what are lottos? What do I need to know about them? That's where they're going to have to go look it up, and they're going to end up finding some guides, and they're going to like figure some things out. And you assume if they're already smart enough to like know stuff like that, they're already part of some sort of community for the game, and they already do know about like how NA is 2 years ahead, for instance. So it's like they're going to sit there and they're going to go like, okay, now I'm armed to the teeth with this, and now I can kind of basically find some path forward. But yeah, I think like if they truly are like head in the sand, don't pay attention to anything, yeah, they're just gonna have a shit time. But I think that's true of like even more veteran players, and I know that to be the case because I've heard some interesting stories from people that have talked to like FGO fans and stuff at like conventions and stuff, where it's like they don't participate in any of the communities for the game. And then they have like some pretty like wildly inaccurate opinions on things. And it's like, I get it. Like even amongst those in the community, you have some pretty wildly inaccurate opinions. So it's like, I can only imagine if you didn't have all the data and knowledge that like the community has to offer, how much like more warped those opinions would be. And it's like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I actually learned most stuff from the game. I can't take that sentence at face value. Like I literally can't take that sentence at face value because almost no mechanic is explained to you in game. The only mechanic that is like carding. That's it. Divine Frag. Thank you for the follow. Yeah. I just push red button, blue button, and green button playing FGO. I think there's a lot of people that do. But I think that's a pretty, like, big reason that a lot of people think that FGO is such an easy game to play, right? Like, it's a very easy game to pick up. It's a very difficult game to master. In the sense that, like, your best players still make mistakes, still don't necessarily know everything off the top of their head because all the numbers are not sitting there crunched for you in front of you, right? Like, so you're like, man, what do I do here? Well, you logically know the answer, but there's still variance both in actual like card performance as well as outcomes in the sense of like whether or not a card crits. So I watched 3 guides before I started. Good. Yeah, it's usually a good idea to watch guides for this game. If no other reason than because, again, like we were saying, a lot of the stuff is not explained in the game. Like, do we have an explanation in game that non-FP supports can't use NPs? No, we don't, because that's no longer the case on either server. I mean, in the sense that I mostly went and literally experimented with all buttons and deduced it. Then to see if I was right and went to look up guides is how I mean it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say like if you played the game for a long time without knowledge, that could be a thing, right? But for instance, like you could sit here and you could be like, okay, apply evade for 1 turn. Well, without like looking up anything online and through process of elimination experimentation, you probably know that evasion will keep you alive through certain things. What you don't know is how much does NP gain matter and how much does the increase actually like mean here. That's the problem. So you're not going to have the numbers there, and something of like abstract something as abstract of a concept as NP gain would elude you because like you can guess what this does for you, but you wouldn't necessarily understand everything, right? Like that's the issue that you run into with this sort of stuff. It's like certain skill descriptions are extremely lacking. Even if you look at the effect, you're like, oh, okay, well, I have an NP gain marker on here. You might not know it's NP gain unless you like came in here to read, right? And here's the other interesting aspect to this chat. All of this was not necessarily available in the game right off the rip. Some of this has been added after the fact. I've never had a mana prism guide. I've had a rare prism guide, never a mana prism one. But it is on my list of things to make this year. Deal significant damage means what exactly to anyone? Well, the better part is so you'll notice if you read most MPs, they say like deal significant damage, right? What do you do though when the NP says deals moderate damage? How much is moderate? I'm gonna give you an answer here, chat. There is no NP in the game that I know of that says that it deals low damage. Like it is, moderate is the lowest that an NP will ever say that it does. How much is significant for that matter? True, right? So it's like there's a lot of stuff you just wouldn't know. I think the other big one would be the way that cards work, right? So Buster, all cards Buster effect gain. And this is where the idea of like, oh my god, if I put a Buster card before my NP, it makes my NP hit harder. A lot of people believe that for years. It's absolutely not true. Never has been. But the game seems to indicate that it is. So it's like, wait a minute. Deals wet noodle damage, yeah. I know because day one player. Well, you don't know because day one player. If you were a day one player that never looked up anything about the game, you still wouldn't know the answer to that. Like that's what's whack, right? Like I guess you could try to brute force it and be like, hey, I'm gonna test this in game. The problem is, unless you did an actual scientific test and ran the iteration hundreds, if not thousands of times, you wouldn't have the answer. And the reason why for that is because NPs do vary in damage as well. They have a plus or minus 10%. So like you'd sit there and you'd test it one time and be like, it didn't do more damage. And then you'd test it the next time and be like, wait, it did more damage. So like you wouldn't get a conclusive response until you did it over like way too many tests, and you'd still have to have a control, right? I was replying to someone else. Oh, I got you. But yeah, like that's the other reason why I say this stuff is like some of it's very difficult to figure out without actually just digging into the numbers, into the guts of the game and the way it works. And your average person can't really do that. So it kind of makes a lot of sense as to like why this game is the way that it is at this point, why the wikis and the community resources are so like invaluable to everybody, is because without them we would functionally be blind in this game. And it's funny too, because I've talked about how like I don't like data mining, I don't like pre-knowledge of stuff that's coming when we know for a fact that the devs are gonna like tell us when they're ready to. But then I've had people try to like turn that back around on me and go like, oh, well then you don't like any like anything like fandom or anything where it gives you all the like descriptions for the abilities and here's what they do and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, that's completely different. Because it's like in one case where I say I don't like data mining, I mean I don't like data mining for the purposes of spoilers. Right? And it's pretty clear why. I've made it, pretty apparent on this channel. I'm not a huge spoiler dude. But data mining to understand the game and the way that it works for already released stuff, yeah, I think that's absolutely imperative. I think that every game should have this, and I think that that's one of the biggest issues in gaming communities across the world, regardless of what game it is. Everybody wants to know how the game actually works so that they can make informed decisions. But the problem with that is, in a lot of cases, it's not readily apparent how to get your hands on the info. Called OG Coup bad based off my performance with him early on. I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. Like, if you take like OG Coup before a lot of his like upgrades that he's gotten, and you were to take him into a node and you didn't have his skills maxed, his performance would be okay. And where it would be okay would be he would be pretty survivable, but he would not deal good damage. Like, it's only been since his buffs that a lot of this has turned around. I'm sure a lot of people remember like Hanako going around and like soloing everything with OG Coup. But a lot of that as well is like Hanako running around with like a Grailed Gold Fode Coup, right? So it's like the way that his coup is going to hit is wildly different from the average person's coup. So there's definitely a lot of potential in a unit like that, but I think like for the average person, until people really could wrap their head around developing the characters and actually investing in them, a lot of people had a tendency to think like, oh, well, just based off kind of the base function of the character and the base performance, this character's not so good. And a lot of people just kind of really did not understand back in the day that, yeah, like the actual scalability and impact of those skills was huge. I think the only reason, like, is because I don't mind data mining too much in other games, right? An example of this that I would give you is like, I don't mind data mining in Marvel Rivals. Why do I not mind data mining there, but I mind it here? Here, it's because, again, one, we're going to spoil story for it. That's kind of stupid. Two, we're going to spoil like new character releases and stuff like that, where the dev's bottom line is actually impacted by that. Yeah, I don't necessarily like that, right? As opposed to like if you go to something like Marvel Rivals, where the characters are given out for free, I don't think it's a big deal, right? Like I think at that point, it's like that doesn't affect the dev's bottom line. If anything, all it does is raise hype for the game. So it's like data mining in those instances, I think is perfectly fine. But data mining in the case of like a gacha game is usually a lot more precarious, because that's entirely why the devs don't want you to data mine. There is so much that goes into kind of cultivating the release of a character and like the hype for them, and them kind of trying to make sure that it happens in the best way possible, that they don't want like external factors like somebody like releasing some like alpha version of it, or again like trying to get the entire kit out ahead of the character's release so that people can already make a decision and say, no, I don't want to roll that character. This character is 5% less good than other character, so I'm not going to roll for it. And the reason this matters is because what the devs are kind of counting on with that is that everyone will find that out eventually, but usually like day one and like the first 24 hours, anything like that is not common knowledge. And so during that time, you have pretty much what I like to call the impulse buy. This is where, regardless of content creators trying to cover things and inform the player base, a lot of people won't necessarily have access to it or won't go look for it yet. And they will just look at the initial offering of the character and decide for themselves whether or not they want that character. So anything that messes with the initial impulse wave is usually going to be really, really bad for the developers, because if you mess with this, it just means they make less money. But if you wait a little bit, get the info out, then the dev doesn't care. So this is also why, and again, I'm not going to name names, but a certain content creator got in trouble with FGO specifically because they were working with data mined resources and dropped a video the literal second that a unit was going to release. So that got them in a little bit of hot water with the community. Understandably so. Because again, it's that exact thing where it's like, yeah, nobody could actually really have reasonably made something that fast. It's jumping the gun. It's trying to like control the narrative about the unit and stuff like that. And it's like a little bit, yeah, just let the people decide for themselves whether or not they wish to roll for the unit, right? New CBC servant is asked, therefore worse than Charlemagne. Is Takasugi worth rolling? I mean, I assume the first statement was like made in jest about what I was talking about. The second statement was somehow unrelated, even though it seemed like it was related. Is Takasugi worth rolling though? I mean, I think he can be. I think a lot of it really just boils down to is like, do you have other good archers? And if you do have other good archers, you don't need Takasugi. Like, he's not a bad pickup, but you don't need him in that regard. A little bit of Achilles, but archer, yeah. Them dropping Bond C info the second they release is bad for the game. No, why would that be bad for the game? That's not like the unit itself, right? Here's why, chat. So showing people even something like this, right? Like because I can tell you this is exactly what me and Avalon kind of do. Like literally at like 0 hour when these units come out, usually I'll wake up to like Avalon sending me a link to one of these, and I'm gonna come into like basically Atlas here, which is a data mining site, and I'm gonna see for myself, here's what the stats for the character are. Is this a bad thing? Prior to release, yes. After release, no. Why? Because the unit is already there. I can already make the decision to completely ignore this and just go buy the unit if I want. Prior to release, though, you can't. And so there's a lot of like flapping of gums, a lot of discussion as to whether or not this unit is, quote, worth it, and therefore people making up their mind ahead of time. This is why like Genshin got really upset over some of that stuff ahead of time. They don't mind you leaking the character's existence, but they do mind you leaking the actual like performance of the character if possible. And that's why it's like people are going to sit there and they're going to try to use it as justification for why you shouldn't roll the unit. And that's a bad thing. So the devs naturally don't like that. Atlas takes a while to get the data in, so it's fine. Yeah, that too. It's like it's not immediately available right away. But also, just because this info is available, it means then I can go look at it just the same as everybody else and determine for myself whether or not I think that this is a good roll. Whether or not I think this unit is a good unit or a unit that is worthy of my attention, right? So if that's the case, then I'm deciding for myself based off the available data rather than kind of letting somebody else try to force the data upon me. Somebody else trying to say, hey, look, we've already data mined this character. We don't think they're good, right? Like that's a huge problem for a gacha community. Now, that being said, it still happens after the release quite a bit. But at least in that case, you can choose whether or not to kind of deal with the info or not. Because again, you could have already gone and gotten it. You could have already heard the info and determined that you didn't care about it. Same thing could happen as well with a data mine pre-release. The issue at play there is it's still going to keep getting passed around, and it's going to kind of foment the community's opinion on it. Whereas like the second somebody decides, hey, yeah, I like this unit, I want to roll, they're likely to go ahead and pull the trigger. They're just going to go ahead and do it. But the longer that goes on with you being unable to go get the unit, the more that opinion circulates and becomes commonplace, the less likely people are to roll the unit, and the more likely people are to have their mind changed to the negative opinion. Now, if the opinion's positive, I guess it just helps, right? But if the opinion's negative, it definitely hurts them. And I think with gacha games, they choose to take the path of, hey, it's better if I don't allow this at all and put my foot down and say no, because I never know whether or not one of my characters is going to perform well, right? If that makes any sense. That's why day one of a banner drops is the most deadly, because the more you sit on it, the more the impulse weakens. Yeah, 100%. Like, and devs are kind of counting on that. Like, they really want you to roll right away, if possible. So it's like, after the fact, I don't think they care too much, but right away, they kind of do. And this is also why, like, so this is another interesting thing, right? Chat, let's say the unit comes out at 4 a.m. So the difference between me and other content creators will try to, like, push a video out really fast within the first couple hours after a unit's release, right? For me, I don't cover this until like usually like 7 p.m. my time, right? It's when my stream starts. So I have all day for people to get this unit in their hands and see what they can come up with. I can look at the numbers, I can tell you what the logical uses of a character are, and I can absolutely think of how I would use the character. But there may be something I don't think of. There may be something that somebody else realizes. This huge gap in time gives that time for that to come out. And if that comes out, then I now know and have a more informed opinion on the character than somebody that like rushes the video out for a knee-jerk reaction, just kind of like looking at the raw stats, right? Like, so that helps me a ton, because there have been a ton of characters where even my knee-jerk reaction was more negative than the video that I recorded, because the time that I originally saw what they were capable of and the time of me recording, something happened that changed my mind. I saw someone do something with it. I talked with other people and heard their opinions on it. So I sanity checked myself. I saw the capabilities that other people had discovered. And that helps. It helps form a more well-rounded opinion on the character. And it's why, again, I'm going to say I feel like I have a really good track record of judging the characters. Most of the characters that I think are really strong are in fact really strong. Most of the characters that I think are really not that good really are not that good and are in need of a buff. So it is what it is. But I'm not going to say I'm perfect in that regard. I'm capable of making mistakes just as much as the next guy. But I do think having that gap there at least helps me. But also at the same time there, that's where it's like, yeah, if you get the unit in the first 24 hours, you might not know all of the uses for the character. But simultaneously, if you decide within the first 24 hours, you're just not going to roll, you might sit there and you might write the character off, but they may actually be better than you first thought. That being said, I think it's always safer to wait in that regard because, yeah, like we said, something may come out that changes your mind. So it's an interesting dilemma that the person has. The devs absolutely want you to roll right away, but it's actually in your best interest to basically wait till the end, or at least wait a little bit of time. The way they kind of design the events and stuff like that, it's usually better to have the character right away. But yeah, that's another clever dev tactic. When did we get the new Evocation? Today. The videos that come out right away are just I loop this node once or twice here. Yeah, I mean, so I've told you guys this before, but it's like I absolutely do not watch other content creators' videos, especially when it comes to anything involving like a character opinion or anything like that. Because holy shit, I do not want my opinion tainted. Like, I have seen some takes that I just vehemently disagree with in the end. People are obviously welcome to have those takes, but it's like, if all I did was watch other people, I feel like my opinion would get warped by that. And I would feel the need to toe the line with other people. So I'm going to say this. If my opinion lines up with the rest of the communities, it's probably a good sign. If my opinion differs from the rest of the communities, you need to ask yourself why. Like, is there something there that I've noticed that the rest of the community hasn't? Or am I maybe like glazing the unit that's really not that good, right? Like, who knows? So it could be on either side of that equation. It could be that the community's wrong. It could be that I'm wrong. But there is something there that's causing that disconnect. But yes, if everybody's in agreement, usually that means that, like, yeah, it's like that is what the character's actual capability and or performance is. Yep. Yeah. It's really funny because I know, like, so Avalon saying he immediately goes out and like runs refund numbers and looks at like damage numbers and stuff. That is something we have always done. Like, because even before Avalon was doing it for us, I used to like tap Bob to do it for me all the time. I used to basically get people to actually get us some hard data ASAP because it's important to understanding the performance of the character, right? So it's like same deal as like everybody that thinks that I just read off like fandom or something like that. They don't even realize that it's like, yeah, we actually do quite a bit of hard number crunching on our end. And it's good to do so. It actually does help you have a more informed take. Because it's like, unfortunately, for better or worse, the kit of a unit can be extremely misleading. You can look at the kit and the skills and be like, oh my god, this unit is busted. And then the actual like damage performance or refund of the unit is like not. They have a real big tendency to balance things quite a bit. Sometimes, though, it is. Sometimes there are things that are too good to be true. This is really funny because it's absolutely true. There's plenty of times that I have not seen a character's like full suite of animations just because I don't go looking for it. Honestly, any must roll is already a bad endorsement of a unit. Yeah, I like you guys know. I'll let you know if I feel like a unit is a quote unquote must roll. But the closest thing that I ever get to in that regard is usually the meta support. So it's like if we have a new meta support, you'll see me very strongly pushing for them. But what if they're a new support but they're not meta? Well, I'm going to tell you where they're strong, but I'm not necessarily going to indicate that they're a must roll. An example that I can give you on this was Proto Merlin. When Proto Merlin came out, I really emphasized how strong that unit was, but I did not tell you guys you had to roll her. Why? Because there were other alternatives to her. Like how people thought Richard wasn't that good. So Richard is the JP equivalent to, hey Cad, how is Takasugi? Because Richard is a late comer, a late addition to a stacked lineup of AoE sabers. And not just AoE sabers, but AoE buster sabers. Right? So is his performance good? Yes, absolutely. And he does stand toe-to-toe with quite a few of them. The issue at play is most people have one of those options already. So do you have to have Richard? No. Like, if you already have a really strong, like AoE Buster Saber in your roster, you don't have to have that, man. In the same way as, like, if you already had a really strong Archer, you don't have to roll Takasugi. Is Yui not meta? No. No, Yui's definitely a good one, but she's not meta. Summer Scotty was meta, I thought. She is. Problem is, Scotty already existed. So you technically didn't have to have Summer Scotty. See? That's how it works, chat. Like, I think there's a good argument to be made that that Proto Merlin is better than Merlin. But also, did I just take a Summer Scotty into this? No, thank God. My brain from being on an A was like, wait, did I just do the dumb? But both are good? Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's best to have both of them, but technically you can go without having one of them. And you can go without having both of them. It's just your quick support's going to be really bad. But that's I think the big thing is a lot of people kind of get lost in this. And I understand how this works now at this point. I think FGO has so many characters. For someone like me, even I struggle to remember everything about them from time to time. But I can't imagine someone that plays this game more casually and does not just eat, sleep, and drink every single like unit and just constantly talk about the units and stuff like that, right? If you didn't, you naturally would have a much more like restrictive view on servant capability and performance. That is to say, you probably wouldn't even know what half the units in the roster did. So that would be an issue at that point. And I see this all the time just from like talking with my friends, right? Like it's blatantly apparent to me that some people just like don't understand and don't know, right? So I get how like weird opinions on some of the characters happen because a lot of people forget that like certain things are the case. Even with me, I'll occasionally forget that like a recent buff has occurred or something like that because I'm so used to talking about a unit within a certain time or like within a certain mindset, right? Like I have an idea of their performance in my head that I have been talking about ad nauseum for years. So then they get a buff and I'll remember it in the moment. I'll remember it for a little while, but then you go like 3 to 6 months away and you ask me about it and I've completely forgotten that the unit got the buff. Unless it was like a major game-changing one. My game knowledge has regressed. I use the same 10 units now. I think, like, to a large degree, the game knowledge for a lot of people has regressed. I think that's... it gets more difficult with the growing size of the roster. 2, it gets more difficult with everybody getting upgrades. So it's like the more upgrades that happen to the ever-growing size of the roster, the more difficult it is to keep it all like straight in your head. And then I think 3 has been the like breakneck pace of the banners, just making it really hard to keep things straight. So it's like I think at this point, trying to retain all of that knowledge in your head is nigh impossible. But that's exactly why it's important to have like community resources like fandom and stuff like that so that you actually can keep track of it. Using different servants every few weeks instead of you just using some of the best options. Yeah, I mean, one of the best ways to learn the roster is to actually use the roster. And it's why I've told you guys before, it's like technically you shouldn't just like roll through all of part 1 if you're a new player with like some like mega support that just hard carries you. You want to actually spend the time to use some of the characters so that you understand how they function and you understand what is good in the game versus what is not good in the game. Auto corrupt, yes. But I think that's a really important thing to understand. And the more people that actually do go and use them, the better. It actually helps to have everybody kind of go out of their way and do this stuff because it makes the player base more educated. Whereas like again, the more you get people that don't actually use the units and the more they just kind of use the same like 10 units or something like that, the more restrictive their viewpoint gets, the more like isolated and never challenged it is. So it's like you need to actually go out there and like it's one thing to be like, oh, this character is the best in their class. And another thing to actually go out and do it. Like to actually use them and prove whether or not they're the best in your class. Because the second you start to use a character that you think maybe isn't as good is the second you challenge that opinion in your own head. Gonna be using Koyami for the next several months as much as possible though to get her to Bond 11. Yeah, I think that's like honestly, I'm gonna say you don't need to like go out of your way to use a lot of the units so much as you need to have a good eye for where you can get away with a like non-meta sport. So like right here, right now, could I do this node without Oberon and Koyanskaya? Yeah, maybe, but then I wouldn't be able to 6-slot it. Right? So it's like there may be another solution, but then the other solution might be a different card type, and then it might also just involve using more meta supports. So there's going to be times, especially with like 90++ content, where the meta-ness can be a little bit unavoidable. So it's important to try to use other units when you don't. To give you guys an example of this, I have used Koyanskaya and Oberon here only for the 90++ in this event. For every other node in this event, I used Quick to beat it. Just as a means of being like, hey, I need to actually start working on the bond for them since they're not bond 15. To get the final coins. Yeah, it's all good. Like there's numerous reasons why you'd want a bond anyways. Whoever is closest to bond up comp, yeah. It's a good idea to like what I usually do, and it's a similar method to that, right? It's not like, oh, who's closest to bond up. I instead just ask myself, who can I get away with? Like, so this is an assassin node, so I need a caster probably, right? Or maybe an alter ego. Who can I still kill the node with? That is my answer. And I try to go to the least common denominator. That is to say, whoever can get the job done with like the least firepower. Because then at that point, and still be consistent, right? Because then at that point, that's my clue for like, hey, I can get away with this, which means that I maybe don't need to use this or this or this. Or maybe I step the unit up and I use a slightly higher damaging unit, but now I can kind of cut down on the support capability and take some more of the like off-brand supports rather than the more meta ones. And that allows me to, again, like balance out my bonding quite a bit. I'm gonna be real with you. While I understand that Khazra drop is strong, there's been a whole lot of Khazra drop like wankage lately, and it makes me want to push back at it, as I believe that people are actually overestimating Khazra drop. She is definitely a strong and capable unit, especially given the fact that she does have the ability to adjust her class. But I do feel like people are like overhyping that lately, and I don't know why. It's really weird because I've noticed that. I never even thought to use her in this event. I mean, it is what it is. You could technically get away with using her in any event. And that is where I think a lot of that comes from. But it's also, again, I think it's wank. It's like, it's people that really like Khazra drop being really vocal about Khazra drop. %75 damage mod is kind of nice. Right, but remember, she sets her class to neutral. So it's like, it does make her semi-effective, but it doesn't make her full effectiveness. Still works, and that's all that matters to me for this node. Yeah, 100%. Right? Like, but that is my point, right? Just because something works does not mean it is like, oh my god, it's so strong, CAD, like everyone's got to roll this unit. No. That's where you'll see me push back, is when I feel like people are like filleting the unit too much. When it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, yeah, the unit is strong. So like, I'll give you guys an example of where I've done this. Seal. I have lately talked about why Seal is so strong and how many nodes she has been useful in, right? But it's also because I am astounded at how good of a solution she has been, and the fact that the devs have not done anything to really stop her, right? Like, this is actually one of the first 90++ nodes in recent memory that I haven't used Seal for, which is wild. Like, because it's almost like they put her into the game and then they kept giving her situations where she would succeed. And it's like, we already knew she was a strong unit. They made her seem even stronger. So it's like, yes, in that exact sort of scenario, I expect that to calm down over time. I expect me to not sit here and be like, oh yeah, Seal's like the strongest unit in the game right now. because I don't think that'll always be the case. I think it's a confluence of she is really strong, she is kind of cracked, but they have put situations into the game to make her seem to be so. I think they didn't see how she could work with some of the node compositions quite that well. Yeah, I mean, I think they did to some extent, but I do wonder, like, just how much they actually do know some of the stuff. Because, like, again, we can kind of see evidence that, at least with regards to, like, Oberon, they underestimated him. Like, I'm sure they knew that Oberon was going to be strong. I don't think they realized that Oberon was as strong as he was. Right? Like, maybe they just didn't, like, completely run the numbers in, like, a full composition or something. I don't really know. But it's definitely something that I've noticed, is that they're like, wait a minute. Not really sold on Seal, to be honest. How would I sell you on Seal if you weren't really sold on her? It's difficult to say because she basically trivializes certain nodes. Nodes that would be very difficult to complete otherwise. I feel like she just absolutely makes them her bitch. I also think that part of this perception comes from the fact that, like, so for instance, if I hop out back here and go to the Bleached Earth nodes, there is a node that I have done quite a bit of that is, quote unquote, the meta node that is an Avenger enemy. This Avenger enemy has millions of health, right? So it's like, you need a Moon Cancer capable of killing this. Technically, nobody can really one-shot this guy. But Seal can. She can at least one-turn him, because she can get the cards and manipulate the deck to do so. So I think when you get something like this, where it is a 90 star node, so just for clarity, chat, this is not a plus, this is a double star node. This is a extreme, and it definitely makes Seal look way more valuable than she probably is overall. She's extremely valuable to this node, but it's not like you can't just, like, take longer to do the node, right? Like, that is a thing, and that's where I say it's like, it does seem like, while she is an extremely strong character, that they've put situations into the game right now to make her seem stronger. Arcuid can? What type of Arcuid we talking about? We talking about, like, MP5 120? Because in a weird way, in theory, Seal can do this at NP1. And that's what's just so nutty about it. Because a lot of it is just, it's hyper buffage and carding. Yeah. NP3 level 120. Okay. Yeah, I mean, technically, so my Seal is also in P3. She's not Grail, but she's also in P3. But yeah, like, from talking with Avalon, I actually, because I'm in P3, have an easier way of doing this node, but it can still be done at NP1. So yeah, it's like, it is a budgetary thing. In the same way that it's like, do you need extra NP levels of Super Orion? No. Like, the extra NP levels could certainly help, but you don't need it. Where the vast majority of the power is getting derived from is the kit and the cards. And so at that point, you don't much care about rolling an extra MP level. I've been using BB Dubai, but is BB Dubai capable of two-turning the node? Oh. Sorry, is it a 3 out of 3 node, chat? I think it is a 3 out of 3. I think.
Pretty darn capable of being consistent. Yeah. Is it a 2? Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember if there was like a middle wave. Yeah, Seal, the issue that Seal has, and probably one of her greatest weaknesses, is that Seal can manipulate cards and she can do it twice. She can't do it all 3 turns. So if you want to make it 3 turns of perfect consistency, it usually means you're having to like sack one of the supports for like Summer BB. Which means like, hey, you get carding efficiency where it's always going to keep occurring, but you lose firepower because of it. So it's definitely a weird thing to have. All right, chat, let's cover the news. Yeah. So, for starters, we got a Mana Prism Exchange update. Basically, let's see here. Yes, the Man of Chaldea is... This one's getting brought back, isn't it? No, wait, is this new? This is new. So it's 5 friend points. Well, I prefer to look at the MLB. So it's 25 friend points when you use this support, and increase the amount of master experience gained when completing quests by 2.5, and the amount of mystic code experience gained when completing quests by 2.5. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is hot fucking garbage. Like, if you have the mana prisms to spare, you can absolutely go for it. But I think I need to start advocating for not purchasing certain CEs, because mana prisms are a very like restrictive commodity at this point. I know what you're thinking, chat. You're probably like, what do you mean, CAD? I have a couple 100,000 of them. I've been doing the lotto since year 1. Yeah, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the like newer players where it is much harder for them to get ahead on mana prisms, right? So, and yeah, even some people that have been playing for a while, if they don't go heavily into a lotto, they're not going to have a ton. Craft essences like this are not good. They don't really do much for you. There's no real reason to take them. And the reason why, okay, is, and I think my CE cheat sheet is still around here somewhere, but if you go to look, basically for every single type, right? So there's Bond, there's QP. Is that it? Yeah, and this hasn't been updated in a long time. God, this is taking forever to load. It's like it has to access the old archived tweet. Yeah. Here you go, chat. This was a resource that I made and maintained back in the day. I kind of stopped doing it because we've just like, it would extend like all the way out here now. Like there's just so many more. Okay. But the way this is divided up, if you guys see, is by Mystic Code, Master, QP, and Bond. That is to say, there are 4 major groups. Okay. Every single support CE released through the Mana Prism shop falls into one of these 4. Here's the problem with this, chat. Ask yourself this question. How many different craft essences of a given rarity do you need? Or sorry, of a given category do you need? Because quite literally, you're going to take one on support, which means you only have 5 slots. So you never need more than 5. So let's take a look at Bond, for instance. There's your 10%. There's your 5% technically for yourself. Bond plus 50 is actually usually worth taking for most nodes. QP and Bond seems like a good one. Master and Bond. Mystic Code and Bond. Maybe FP and Bond. Thing is, if you just look at all of these, your baseline is 5%, right? And this would still be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them not including the plus 50. There are 6 of these that give at least 5% bond. So why the fuck would you ever use the 2.5% one? There's really just no point. Because if you go like, oh, but CAD, I need both bond and QP. You're right. You literally already have that with 5% for each. So it's like, yes, the value here is that this gives you FP. That is overvalued, if you ask me. This is like absolutely eating way more of the itemization than you probably really care, right? But the idea here is that, yes, you only ever need 5 of them. So to me, if the CE that is coming out is not objectively speaking or even situationally speaking better than one of these, there is no reason to buy it. Just buy these instead. And once you have them, you technically don't need to buy more. It's kind of stupid that they keep doing this. So it's like, yeah, I don't really see the point. Yeah, I do think it's like that's what they're trying to do here with like FP and stuff. And we have had some other ones, like some rare ones that they've done with chat. What was the Koinskaya one? Does anyone remember the name of it? I can find it here in a second. Yeah, here you go. So from NFF with love, right? So this was also one. This is one of the newer ones. This is plus 20% bond points if the animal has, if the servant has animal characteristics, right? So at least this one is, depending on the units that you use, situationally better. As opposed to the other ones, they're not, right? So when you have a catch-all craft essence, and then you have one that is situationally better, it might be worth. But when you have one that is not better than the catch-all, it's never worth, pretty much at that point. So that's how I choose to look at it. They are designing it in such a way that it's like, well, we can make the argument for like the FP and stuff, right? Like there is an argument for maybe why you should get these. I think that argument is such a weak argument when stacked up against a 5,000 mana prism cost for a person that just does not have hundreds of thousands of mana prisms. I think that's just an objectively like bad way to balance this. How many servants have animal trait? Yeah. I mean, we also have one, wasn't it like the Da Vinci one too, chat? Which I think is, yeah. So here's the Da Vinci one. This one's objectively way better than the Koinskaya one. Why? Because, behold, 20% bond points for all caster allies. You can just load your party up with casters. That's fucking easy to do. So this is a really good one. I highly recommend everyone grab this one. It's not necessarily going to be good for like bonding your meta supports and stuff, but this could be objectively good for like just a bunch of backline bonding and stuff like that. Probably eventually, Ed. Because, like, again, I got to do a Mana Prism shop guide, so this'll... Oh, it'll probably get covered in that. 20% to riders, yeah. But yeah, so it's like, they've started to do a couple of these. These are good. I have no idea what they were thinking with this. This is like regression. This is them going back to the, like, we're going to do the split stuff. It's bad. I don't think it's good, and I don't think anyone really needs this, so... That's the thing that came out today on JP. We also got the CBC pre-release campaign. I think they did give us a stream date. Yep. Live in 6 days. Wait. March 5th, 6 days from now? This has got to be like 6 days and change. It's got to be like much closer to 7 days. Because this keeps throwing me for a loop, but February only has 28 days. So it's like my brain is like, ah! But yeah, so it's like, I guess it is. But it is happening on the 5th. So you guys can expect it there. Again, go watch Mr. Two Love Trouble for that. I have no idea. The 5th would be Wednesday, somewhere in the middle of the day. That's going to be really odd. But yeah, so that's going to be our actual stream date for that. Looks like we get a pre-campaign, just some login bonuses, some silver fruit, 3-star foes. Wait. The White Day Spectacles. Oh, it's the limited craft essence exchange shop. So this is the old CBC craft essence exchange that you can buy from the rare prism. I was reading this at first as like, wait, are they adding the actual costumes? Because I thought they literally did that this year on an A coming up. So I was like, wait a minute, they've already done this. But yeah, it's the shop itself. So if you want to spend a rare prism, you can go back and buy it to basically get access to those craft essences, but only, I believe, if you haven't already done it. So if you did the event while it was relevant, you won't be able to get a new craft essence out of this. Wrong page? What do you mean? Oh, wait, this is an A, isn't it? Ah, okay, thank you. Wait, did we not? I could have sworn we got something for JP, though, on CBC. Was it just the stream announcement? We did? You were looking at it? This is not that. I sent it to you? Okay. Yeah, we were not looking at this chat. Don't gaslight me. All right. Try again. Thank you. There we go. Okay, so it'll be held March 5th, 2025. Login bonus held from March 3rd. The condition for clearing or for participating in the event is Kosho 3. This is Ordeal Call 3. Which, as you guys know, they have recently main interluded, which means that you guys can literally like go out and do that right now to qualify. There's no requirement to have done Ordeal Call 1 or 2. Chat, you'd have to tell me, though, is there a requirement to have done the rest of like part 1 and Lost Belt for it? That I don't know. But I know you don't have to have done Ordeal Call 1 or 2. Need to do the OC prologue. Okay. Yeah, if that's the case, you need to at least get up to that point. You need to have done LB1, or sorry, you need to have done part 1 and all of Lost Belt, and then done the Ordeal Call prologue. But yeah, you don't have to have done Ordeal Call 1 or 2 at least. Let's see. The event opening date and time appears to be March 5th. It looks like the live stream is going to be like right before that. And this is them telling you you don't have to. So they do explicitly state you do not have to have done Ordeal Call 1 or 2. You do not have to have done Epic of Remnant. You do not have to have done 5.5 or 6.5. They're preparing everybody for Ordeal Call 4. Scheduled to begin in spring. There's a clear support campaign that's going to last until the end of March. There's a countdown login bonus. Just some Saint Courts and some tickets. Basically, enough for one roll right here and enough for one roll right here. So this is the servants eligible for event bonus. Like it's Satanta and Jason, James Moriarty, Izo Okada, and Duryodhana. So, and this is them saying in addition to male servants. So every male servant will have bonus. The ones that you guys just saw will be actually involved with the event. But then every male servant will have bonus. Plus these units. And who these units are is these are your in-betweens. They are usually both on bonus for both Valentines and Chaldea boys. They get increased attack power. All males get increased bond point acquisition. It's probably plus 20%. As there's no guarantee that they appear in the event. Interesting, they got Ren's VA to be there. Ooh, this is interesting. For every 10,000 reposts of the 2 eligible posts on Wednesday, you will receive 2 Saint Courts. Up to a maximum of 70,000, you'd receive 14. So I don't know if this is how they normally do it. I don't think this is, but this appears to be their way of saying it will just now scale. If you can hit the max reward, you can get the max reward, but if you don't, we'll just scale the amount of reward that we'll give it to you. Kama's full female, yeah. So that is just your teaser for CBC. Again, we do know Ordeal Call 4 is coming. Prepare for it. We're also going to have the grand system coming sometime after Ordeal Call 4. That's something they've already announced. We are looking forward to that. I have an upcoming video that I am working on with Avalon for basically something that's going to cover that grand system. So we're going to be working on that. I'm going to try to get that out for you guys here soon. But yes, that is all in the works. So that was more of the news from JP. Oh, looks like we got this cute banner. And this is involving the Evocation Festival, because we have a new one on JP that is starting out right here, as you guys can see. So literally starting today, running through March 12th, we have the Evocation Festival for these 4 units. EO, Nocnaria, Santa Martha, and Bunyan Berserker will all be permanently available. The interesting one here is Bunyan, as Bunyan was technically already available via a main interlude for her quest. However, it was made apparent to me that we never got coins for Bunyan. So that is why Bunyan has been added to the Evocation Festival. So now there is a mechanism by which you guys can purchase it, and therefore kind of freeing up Bunyan from the confines of the old system. So again, it's definitely nice. Martha's a really, really good buffer for those of you guys that did not get her or skipped her event. EO, as you guys know, is a really, really good AoE arts looper. Same thing with Nocnaria. She's just a foreigner compared to EO's ruler. The only issue with Nocnaria is going to be she has a little bit of a restriction if you're not using her with Castoria. Okay. Let's just see if there's anything different in here. Oh, so this is interesting. So if I read this correctly, they're only adding the coins for Bunyan. So I guess Bunyan will still be available via the conventional means of doing her event, especially because she is a 1-star. She's kind of the abnormality here as a 1-star. Everybody else is your typical 4-star welfare, but Bunyan is, hey, I technically exist through other means. Okay, so that's just them telling you about the leaves. So again, you guys can get their essential materials, their copies, and their coins. Pretty much everything you guys need. However, keep in mind what you will not get with regards to coins. You will get enough coins to get everything for the servant, minus the amount of coins that you will get from bond. What does that mean? That means that they still require you to fully bond the unit all the way up to 15 should you want the maximum amount of coins for the character. So they're just going to give you the amount you would normally get from bond, or sorry, they would give you the total amount that you need minus the amount that you missed that you would get from bond. That will be the amount that you receive in the store. All of these cost the Evocation Festival leaves in order to get. This is basically par for the course at this point. If you guys are someone playing on JP, you know exactly how this works. If you are somebody that's looking to this, as this system will be coming to NA this year, I have an Evocation Festival guide/explained video that you guys can go check out that explains all the inner workings of this and kind of what to expect. Yeah, so they're still saying that Bunyan can be obtained by playing all the Statesmen, which is an unlockable event that you can get from the exchange for rare prisms, but I think it's basically free if you have the conditions fulfilled. There's no special essential materials for Bunyan, so they just put in her coins, and that's it seems. And this is EO's costume from her event. I definitely like that they're doing that. They're kind of adding back things like that you would otherwise have a hard time getting. So this is the 10th Evocation Festival. They're holding a special daily login bonus that you can receive up to 600 leaves and 10 courts from. You only have to have cleared Fuyuki to be eligible. And this lasts until March 13th. There will also be limited time missions for master missions. where it looks like you'll get 100 leaves, 1 crystallized lore, 10 saint quartz, a special craft essence as well that's commemorating the 10th one, which is probably this right here. Yep, there it is. Okay, looks like we do get 2 times experience bonus, and oh wait, sorry, yeah, you get 2 times the rate of leveling the character, so double XP efficiency, and 2 and or sorry, yeah, I'm reading this wrong. Basically, you're going to get 2 times the rate of great and super success, and the unit will be 2 times as efficient to level as if they would be in the event. Okay, it looks like the AP consumption for the strengthening quest of Paul Bunyan will also be halved during this time, so it's a good thing to get that done. QP consumption required to strengthen servants is also halved, so it just literally costs you less. All Ember Gathering that appears in Chaldea Gate will be open all day. That's definitely nice. And the AP consumption is halved. The following servants receive 20% bond bonus when earned in quests, and it's going to be your 4 units from the Evocation Festival. Bonus that increases their attack power. Yup. And then that's it. That looks like that's the wrap. There are your units. So again, this is definitely a really good one. This includes a lot of units that we've wanted to kind of show up for a while now, particularly Santa Martha was a good one. EO is also another really, really solid choice. So I really like that they've kind of added this in now. And Avalon sent me this because he knows that I always ask, but we do have a handy dandy little like thing we're keeping track of here for these are the units that are all in the, I don't know why it stopped loading, all in the Evocation Fest, and then the units that are not, if it will ever finish loading. It's like absolutely going potato right now, and I have no idea why. Okay, there we go. It's almost there. Chat. Hold. 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 I have no idea why this is taking this long. Like, I'm literally looking at like a full rendered version of it on the Discord. So it like the computer itself has the PNG. It's just like it's not wanting to cooperate. In the cursed link version, apparently. Cat on that dial up. Well, it's weird. It's like you can see like my internet is not having like any issues whatsoever, right? Like, okay, maybe it is a little slow. I don't know. I gotta like start to scream at these companies at this point. I'm gonna try to reload it. Here you go, chat. Because the screen is not wanting to cooperate. I have decided to take this on my own and literally screen capture it from the other screen. So these are the units, as you guys can see, that are currently available via the Evocation Festival. We have almost all the welfares. However, we do not have certain ones. Probably the biggest one still on this list of those that have not been put in. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, oh man, it's your boy Iori and stuff like that. No, it's right here. That right there, Da Vinci Ruler, is a welfare support. So getting your hands on her, absolutely phenomenal. When she comes back in via the Evocation Festival, it's going to be a good day. And it's definitely going to be nice for a lot of people. So I'm surprised at this point that they haven't brought her back. She is definitely the oldest of the welfares that has not been brought back. However, I can at least understand for right now because they did just bring her back with the rerun of her event. So they at least have a little bit of time that they can kind of like wait. Most people on JP now got that second chance. And that's kind of one of the reasons why a lot of people wanted the rerun. So it is a thing, but the second they make that permanently available, that's going to be good for a lot of people. And that, frankly, most of the welfare still remaining are all pretty good. So it's one of those deals where I expect that they will keep adding more to the Evocation Festival. However, don't expect that this is ever going to completely go away. They're never going to completely erase everything on this list by adding it to the Evocation Festival. What do I mean by that? I mean, the devs will always keep some level of FOMO in the game by virtue of just kind of slow walking the rest of the Evocation Festivals. So they just added 4 more units, but expect it to be a long time before we ever get another Evocation Festival. Because they're only going to probably try to parallel the rate at which they are releasing new welfares into the game. So you can expect maybe 1 to 2 Evocation Festivals a year, if that. Yeah, I think they are very much going to like make sure that they maintain at least several units in this list that are like unavailable. It doesn't mean they'll be permanently unavailable, because as units move off the list into the upper section, they're just going to keep adding more and more and more units to the actual list. So that's all it'll be. As 4 go out, 4 more will come in. Unless they decide to shrink it down to a much smaller amount, like maybe like they get rid of all of these, and then it's like, okay, now we have all of these. So they could still shrink it some. But we already have noticed they have slowed down at the Evocation Festivals, so I'm not going to be surprised to see that sort of pacing and pathing continue. And I believe that's it. I believe that is all the news we had for today off of JP, which is, you know, at least welcome. It's funny because I was talking about this just the other day. I was like, man, I won't be surprised if we get some news about CBC soon. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened today. It's not like I predicted it or anything. I just kind of have a sixth sense at this point about when they're going to like start doing that. But yeah, we can kind of expect that we're going to have CBC next on JP. After that, I think it'll be interesting because it could be that they go straight into Ordeal Call 4 from there, or they could do the Golden Week collab. Thing is, Golden Week is usually the end of April, so I think there's quite a bit of time between Chaldea Boys, and that's what kind of makes me think that Ordeal Call 4 may be coming. Plus, if they give us Ordeal Call 4, maybe like late March, early April, what you do is you set yourself up to have another Singularity basically at the end of the year, sometime around like December, basically, for, again, the end of Lost Belt. So I think at that point, that would be good pacing for them, and they would have at least set themselves up for success. But we'll just have to see. Kind of jury's still out on this stuff. And I'm sure they'll pad it some. They've got a little bit of time that they can waste. So they'll probably have some campaigns and stuff in between this. I don't know if it'll immediately like, oh, Chaldea Boys ends straight into Ordeal Call 4. It may not be the case at all. So they may take their time. Yeah, we already have a Ordeal Call 3 clear campaign that they had already announced there. I did not see what the... Let me go look at it real fast, because there was a link to click on in the actual post. Because I haven't paid too close of attention to that since I already have it done. Yep, here's the support campaign. Basically all of March. They have not told us what this is. That's kind of funny. Normally they'll tell you it's like, oh, it's going to be half cost or something. They quite literally have just announced that they will be holding a clear support campaign. That's it. They haven't told you what the details are. Which is like, it's kind of funny to me. I mean, they did tell you about like what they're going to be doing with the welfares and stuff, but yeah, I was looking to see like, oh, have they actually revealed like that we're going to get like half cost AP or 0 AP or something like that? Details normally come out when it drops. Yeah, it's just funny. It's an announcement of an announcement, basically. There's going to be a live stream to announce the start of Chaldea Boys for NA that's coming up. Yes, we did actually get news on that. I think that was yesterday. Or maybe it's all blending together for me in my head. Yeah, here it is. So for us, it's going to be on the 4th. This is shocking. It's not like I predicted any of that. As Avalon's been saying, like this is the way that they have been now. So it's like we get our pre-campaign, it goes up to a date. The next day is your stream. And then the day after is your event. So like this is just the pattern that they've been going with now. So it's like you have the end of the pre-campaign, the stream, and then the event, each in a sequence. Shocked, I tell you, shocked, yeah. So it's like it's not surprised. It's not surprising at all, is rather what I should say. And again, that's going to be on the 4th, which should be next Tuesday. So I'll be around for that. I'll be able to cover that with you guys. Actually, that's a really weird date. And I would like to let the record show that everybody who keeps insisting that NA only drops events on a Friday, this is exactly the case of you being wrong. Like, if it does come out on Wednesday, it's exactly what I've been talking about. They're not so formulaic that they always release on the same day. They're just usually formulaic with how they do their patterning. Just not like, oh man, it's always going to be the same day of every week, right? JP drops stuff on Wednesdays, yeah. I mean, even JP has definitely been like around at that point. Like I wouldn't even say that it's always Wednesdays on JP, because there have been numerous like live streams that have occurred on the weekend for JP, and then it's like, oh, the event is still somehow the next day. So like it's never set in stone. They can always shift it around, and that's one of the reasons why I caution anybody about like generalizing it too much, because you never know. Like the devs can absolutely just pull a fast one on you. So it's like when we get too stuck in like assuming that, this will be the case, it's usually where they flip the script and then everyone gets angry. Because it's like, what? They can't do that. It's like, yeah, they can. They've always been able to. They just haven't until now. I mean, they drop stuff on like Mondays and stuff as well for NA. Like it's been all over the place. I finally got Johanna. Nice. Very little time to spare. There's a typical patch day, but it can vary if they want to change it. Yeah. CAD look right. Okay, but this is my right. Why? There's nothing over there. Like nothing. You want me to look left instead? Yeah, that's big congrats. I know, especially if you like want a unit, trying to do the single to get them is always like you basically have no hope. Let's do it, chat. I don't do my daily singles as much as I thought I would. It's like part of me just goes like, it's kind of not necessary. I'll take one of those. The Dante's banner, a small spin, in hopes for another outrage. That would be outrageous. But yeah, I mean, I think like doing the daily spin on something like that, definitely some logic to it. Chat, I can't press that button, and y'all know why. Y'all know exactly what would happen if I pressed it. So we're not pressing that button. USO farming? It would be. It's like it literally would just result in the exact outcome everyone knows. John Spook. No. I really want to roll Nito banner, but no. Yeah, I mean, the problem with her is she's a permanent unit, so you naturally just go like, man, do I really like want to have to roll for her? Do I want her to spook me? If you're a more free-to-play person, you basically just gotta roll, because they're just never gonna show up. Oh, looks like Monster Hunter dropped that they're going to have some more adjustments for the final like launch patch. All right, chat, hold on. Let us behold. Wait, whoa. Hold on, never mind. I ain't watching that. That's an hour long. Holy shit, give me a TLDR. Okay, let's see. Varies dependent on hardware and settings. It's only the Xbox Series X that prioritizes frame rate, and only the PS5 that prioritizes frame rate will do 60 frames. Yeah, I heard that they did they changed the hit stop quite a bit. So if you guys are unaware of what hit stop is, it's what makes a like weapon attack feel like it has weight to it. It's a like delay to hits. So you can see it says like makes it feel more weightier, more impactful. Mitigation of friendly fire had been mitigated already. For upswinging hammer attacks. This is so sad because as somebody that was a hammer user, I actually want them to put this back in. For two reasons. One, the hammer user usually hits the head. So if you're getting in my way and you're getting hit by it, it means you're also at the head, which means you're probably standing in my way, which means you getting hit by that is my sign to get the fuck out. And two, sometimes it's actually really fun and awesome to launch your friend on purpose with it so that they can get a mount. So that they fly up onto the monster and like get to start like stabbing it in the back, right? Like, so it could actually be done both purposefully and as a like, hey, you're in my way. So I actually liked kind of having that. Players will also be able to use Shockproof Jewel to nullify damage reactions. Okay, see, now I'm a little bit confused, because then what's the point of the friendly fire mitigation as opposed to nullifying damage reactions? Is this like from any source of damage? From any source of interruption? As opposed to the friendly fire stuff is only from your ally? Stops player tripping? So like, what do you mean? Like what is player tripping? Like you getting knocked over by an enemy? Because like you can see, you can still just hit the person. Like stop you from interruptions. Yeah, I'm confused though. What is the difference between mitigating friendly fire and mitigating like damage interruptions from a player? Right? Like this is where I'm weirded out, because it's like you already just don't take damage when a player hits you. So technically friendly fire isn't even a thing by the conventional definition. So what are they meaning when they say that they're mitigating friendly fire? I can trip allies if I'm swinging next to them. Yeah, and that seems to be what this is showing, is that you can still trip people. So that's clearly what the shock jewel or shockproof jewel nullifies. I get that. I'm just confused as to what they're saying they're even doing here with this first part then. Yeah, and it's fine if you guys don't know, but I'm not hearing like that there's actually a difference in these two things right now. Like that damage reactions and friendly fire or anything different at all. Adjustment of frequency of monster area movement. Yeah, I heard that this was bugged and that apparently people were like moving around too much. Or sorry, not people, but monsters, right? Like, so they would immediately try to flee the area after just a couple of hits. Players will also be able to use pop-up camps and fast travel in the full version. Thank God. That was one of the other reasons I didn't want to play the beta. There was like you couldn't really use camps at all, so like getting around was actually kind of a pain. Added vaulting dance to strengthen aerial action. Yeah, I heard like when the first beta went live, it felt like everybody was like super stoked about Insect Glaive, but then after a while it seemed like everybody's reaction on it turned negative, and I wasn't really sure why. So I don't play Insect Glaive, so I couldn't tell you, but I assume it's like they kind of messed with the aerial capability of it, was one of the big complaints that I kept hearing. Orange extract effect now also negates knockback while weapon is drawn. Okay, that could be nice. Wind pressure, tremors, and roars? What the fuck? Lance, charge counter now allows guarding while charging. Oh, that's good. So, like, as you're moving at the enemy, you can still hold your shield up, which you should be able to. Can be chained into any other move. Power Guard will now charge to higher levels more quickly when used to successfully defend against more powerful monster attacks. Yeah, I've heard, unfortunately, that like Lance is like just the most boring of the weapons to play, but it's also like just solid because it just doesn't take much damage. Perfect Guard and Power Guard can be chained into a new move. Switch axe, various adjustments made so that switching sword mode after building the axe mode gauge feels more satisfying. Parameter improvements made to various moves, including full release slash. Knockback is now negated when using full release slash. Definitely nice. Sword and board. Wait, you can guard and rising slash? Did you do that in the prior games? Boring is relative. I enjoy being a wall of stabs. Yeah, you're basically the human pincushion. You could? Okay. Especially normal attacks and perfect rush. Mobile chop and side slash combo, as well as guard slash and perfect rush. Evasion effectiveness of backstep and sliding swipe. Oh, let me say this, both for like everybody in chat and my VIP friends. I don't care if you play the game. However, if y'all just like super grind far ahead of me, because I am going to have limited time to play this, don't expect me to want to take you on a hunt, because I just won't be able to experience the hunt. If like somebody's like rolling in with like high rank weapons to my low rank hunt, I'm not going to want you there, because it's not going to be a normal hunt for me at that point. So it's like I could just try to do it solo, but that may be what I have to start doing, is hunting a lot more solo. Because this is unfortunately one of the big problems I have, and I've noticed this whenever I play games with like people in the community, is because I don't have as much time to play the games. Usually people go and like no life the game and get like super far ahead of me, and then it kind of ruins the experience. So that's like the issue that I always end up having. Increased attack power and responsiveness of moves such as normal attacks and arc shots. Yeah, I think it's going to be really smart to carry a ranged weapon with you, since you can have 2 in this game. Multiple wounds are now locked onto 1 by 1. Oh god. That's going to be nice. Other weapons, wide-ranging adjustments to skills and elemental values to balance for full game content, including in-game. I'm gonna be honest, I actually think that they should have detailed all of this, and here's why. Unless they're planning to make more changes to it, which maybe they are, I'd rather read about this now than like wait till launch day and then have to read through a gigantic grocery list of here's all of the nitty-gritty changes that we made. So it's like I'd rather have it now and just know. But yeah, definitely interesting. I'm excited. I'm hopeful that Wilds is going to be a good entry point to the series. And at least the initial reviews that I've seen, people are quote unquote criticizing the game for being too easy. But my understanding with every Monster Hunter game is that it usually launches with low rank and high rank quests, and then you later on get master rank via like some sort of DLC or expansion or something like that. So to people that have been playing the Monster Hunter series for years, and people that have obviously been doing like master rank stuff from like the prior game, the low rank and high rank stuff is probably just not nearly as challenging. And I was talking about this with Bob the other day too, but it's like I feel like having 2 weapons is also going to help make this game just a lot easier for some people. Because if you're a veteran, it's very easy to go, hey, I know I'm going to carry this second weapon that, even though it's maybe not my ideal weapon, it counters the thing that I'm fighting. So like, for instance, an example would be like, oh, I'm running around with like a greatsword, but then the enemy like flies off, and so I pull out my bow or my bow gun or something like that. So it's like, I feel like this is actually going to be like a major factor for why this game does feel easier. I've also heard people say that like, apparently this is a criticism that every Monster Hunter game goes through. Like, literally as the game is coming out, everyone keeps saying it's too easy. And this has been a thing for every prior release going all the way back to like the early 2000s. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know that this is that big of a complaint. It is what it is. But I will say this. I do think, at minimum, just from my experience with the beta, that the tutorials in Wilds are the best that the series has had. That is to say, the game is explained more in Wilds than it really is in any of the other games. And for that reason alone, I think this is the best entrant to the Monster Hunter franchise that you will ever really get. So, my advice to you guys, if you have any sort of passing interest in Monster Hunter, check out Wilds. Because this will be, from what I've seen, probably the best time to get in if you're a new person and you have some sort of like interest. You want to know what Monster Hunter's about. You want to experience the same thrill that everyone else does. This one does seem like it's going to be the best for that. It's easy when you know all the monster stuff already. Yeah, I'll never forget like playing World as my first one, and like all of my friends kind of like being Monster Hunter veterans and then just being like, oh, you didn't know about this, or oh, you didn't know about that, and like they would only tell me after I would already like ask about the questions. Honestly, it's one of the big reasons why when I first played Monster Hunter for the first time, I did not have a fun experience. Was the people that I were playing with were, frankly speaking, terrible. Like, not terrible at the game, terrible at like helping a new person get into the game. Because unfortunately, the game didn't do a good job of explaining some of the stuff. And they as well just assumed that you knew everything. So it didn't really go very well for me. But thankfully, I gave it another shot, and I'm so glad that I did, because I've had a blast playing the Monster Hunters for the most part, and I think they're a really fun concept for a game. It's really cool to me. It's a little bit like almost like a Souls-like type of game, in the sense of you have this monster instead of a boss that is doing a bunch of dynamic stuff and moves, and you've got to try to learn to like play around that. You've got to learn when to give it space, when to pressure it, and all of that, and how to kit out your character and how to like best try to counter the fight. And I think that's really cool. I actually really like that, and I think that that's a awesome thing that for better or worse, a lot of games nowadays don't really do. A lot of action games don't put a lot of like strategy in them. It does feel like Monster Hunter at least incentivizes you to have some strategy. It says like, hey, if you do the work, if you put in the time and you prepare for the fight's going to go a lot easier for you than if you just YOLO it and walk right in. Camera spazzing? Is it? I haven't seen it. Whoa. It was loading there for a moment too. Well, I don't show any dropped frames. He's been turned into 20 FPS. What are you guys talking about? Like I'm looking at it right now. It looks perfectly fine to me. Super laggy. Your camera is a slideshow. What? I'm just kind of trying to look to see. Oh, that is super weird. I think it's the stream on Twitch, because Aurelia is also a slideshow. Yeah, it's not my camera. It's my camera's the only thing that's moving. So I'm gonna draw on the screen right now, and you guys can tell. This will be how you tell if the stream is a slideshow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a Twitch issue. There's nothing I can do about that, chat. That is just something on the side of the invest servers. Damn, we got CAD PowerPoint now. Yeah, I mean, let me is it still happening? No, it looks like it cleared up now. Yeah, it looks like it's like completely fine. Let me know if it happens again. I can just like restart the stream if that's the case. I don't know why that would happen, but that's just really, really weird to me. That's super odd. Skynet is taking over Twitch. Yeah, it feels like it. Oh, so chat. I gotta show you guys this too, because I saw this earlier today and I was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. So this is beating the dead horse. Okay, so chat, I have to ask you. This is from 13 days ago. I have a question that I'd like to pose for you. We're going to watch the Avowed trailer, and then we're going to watch another trailer. And I want you guys' opinion as to whether or not you would purchase Avowed or purchase this other game.
Ambassador Volshin Hilgar at your service. His Majesty names you our Imperial Envoy. An extension of the throne's authority.
Oh god, that got super pixelated. I don't know why.
You've seen how wild the Living Lands has become. Both in nature and in politics. The source of the Blight eludes us still. Just be careful. The Empire doesn't have many friends on these shores. And the Emperor would never forgive me if anything happened to you. But let's not dwell on unpleasant matters. The Living Lands is fractured. Sometimes I think the island has a mind of its own. There is no easy path from here, for you or any of us. So you will decide. The choice is yours, as will be the consequences.
Bro, cast fist.
History waits for you, Envoy. Go meet it.
By the way, I have to say, let me stop and take a moment right here. Fuck any game dev who does this. Especially with a like single player game. I hate this. This is terrible. Stop it. This is the same thing as locking New Game Plus behind your shit. Like, I know you want more money. This is the scummiest fucking way to get it. It's so stupid. So, that was the Avowed launch trailer, right? That's like what they released the game with. That is their most epic trailer. And that's exactly what, like, it's them putting their best foot forward so that you buy their game, right? And honestly, I didn't think that was bad. But obviously, we've seen some of the Avowed reviews, and it's not come out as good. So now, chat, I want to ask you, would you rather buy this game?
We have always known war. It forged our empire. Turned heroes into queens and kings. And decimated our foes. Now our oaths are lost, forsaken. And you must face the monsters our sins have borne. Is an oath worth the weight of a crown?
Like, I'm sorry. The announcement trailer was better than the fucking launch trailer. tell they changed the tone of the game. They actually did. This was like classic freaking badass dark fantasy. I saw hints of The Witcher. I saw hints of Dragon Age Origins. I saw hints of Skyrim all in this. And with the other one, I saw a bright fluorescent like hellscape. And it just straight up to me shows that at some point they had the right idea. They were going to make a truly good and epic RPG of their own. And it got subverted. Like somebody inside the studio basically fucked up a lot of the stuff they were going for. The first one reminded me of Veilguard. Yeah, that's like, I'm sorry, somehow it ended up as this. Right? When it was this. Like, this is all talking about, like, your oaths and serving the crown. And this is just like, yo, bro, I don't want to identify as anything. I want to identify as 50 different things at once. That's what this reads to me as. Fluorescent hell like a neon cookie. Yeah. So it's like, I saw the announced trailer today, and I hadn't seen it ever. This was announced 4 years ago. Okay, now I understand. I understand, having seen this, why people were excited for this game, because this trailer was badass. So it's like, I think a lot of people were excited for it, and then this is what it actually ended up being. So something tells me that they changed the art direction, they changed the game's overall design, and that's what just really messed with this too much. I want to be knockoff Elder Scrolls. Yeah, a lot of people have compared it to Skyrim, right? And it's like, I don't think they ever set out to make Skyrim. I think trying to compare it to Skyrim, and I think a lot of people, I think the issue with kind of comparing it to Skyrim is that a lot of people forget just how epic and awesome Skyrim is. Skyrim, still to this day, stands as a pretty decent game. Now, almost 15 years after its release, you can still go back, still play Skyrim. And the example for this that I can give you guys is just that. So here is SteamDB. You guys can use this if you ever want to see how many people are playing anything in Steam. We can go and we can say Skyrim, right? Okay. And you guys can see there's obviously several different versions. I think I probably want the anniversary version. Technically a DLC, even though it's like free DLC. I don't know. Let's just look at base Elder Scrolls and see. Will it not show me? Because normally, maybe it won't now. Maybe it's special edition? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so if you go look at the Steam charts for special edition, this is the amount of players that are currently playing Skyrim. This is the 24-hour peak. This was the all-time peak 8 years ago. The sheer amount of like player retention for this game, fucking nuts. A lot of people just really like, I want to say it's popular to hate Bethesda right now. It's popular to shit on Skyrim and be like, it's such an old game. But like, there is not another game in existence that has this kind of staying power, chat. They really did make one of the greatest games of all time with this. Whether or not you like Skyrim, I don't think that's up for debate, unfortunately. Mods has got to be? Yeah, I mean, to a degree, right? But I think people are quick to dismiss the game and say, oh, the game's not good because mods. That they made a conscientious choice to allow and enable mods. That is what the creation engine does for them. is it literally is like the most moddable engine that anyone has ever made. They specifically made the engine with the intent for it to be moddable, right? So one, that's a W on their part for designing it that way. And two, I'm also going to say that the base game for Skyrim is not nearly as bad as anyone would claim. If it were, people would have never bought it on consoles that originally weren't moddable for it. So at that point, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to say the game's bad, but the game is not. Yes, mods do give it staying power. Mods do give it quite a bit of longevity. But I'm going to be honest, I still think people would be playing it even without the mods. Like, maybe not to this degree, but you would still have a pretty robust community for this game. Minecraft? Yep, Minecraft is definitely up there. Like you have to look at some of the greatest games in order to be able to compare Skyrim, right? Like, you're going to have to look at Minecraft. You're going to have to look at like the Mario series and stuff like that, because that is the echelon that this is in now at this point. It just keeps producing people. Okay. Now we can go look at Avowed too. And oh boy, that's not looking too hot. Because keep in mind, chat, that Skyrim Special Edition was at a time when the Steam user base was a lot lower, and at a time where the game had already been out for several years. So at that point, the fact that it has already both peaked higher and has more concurrent players, it's not looking too hot for Avowed, right? And I'm not going to sit here and try to like shit on Avowed and be like, oh, this game is trash or anything like that. Because I've watched someone play through a lot of Avowed already, and while I have my misgivings about it, I still think that there's a lot of good in the game. I still think that like people are way too quick to write a game off and say bad game, game trash, yada yada yada. Whereas to me, I think the biggest takeaway from Avowed is that Avowed is just kind of okay. And that is both a like, it's not a derogatory thing, but it's also kind of a damning thing for a game nowadays. If your game is perceived to just be okay, usually in the greater gaming community's perception, that's not good enough. It's like basically people say if you're not like above an 80 on Metacritic, you're just bad, right? Which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because I have played several games that are in the 70s that are perfectly fine and relatively enjoyable experiences. So there are just kind of circle jerks that people kind of have over this type of stuff. But I do think that there is at least some fire to this smoke. That is to say that a lot of people have, like even the positive reviews for Avowed are usually just people that are kind of trying to be positive for it, and they still have negative things to say about it. Whereas the negative reviews are all like, holy crap, y'all could have done so much better, right? So I think the overall tone, even amongst people that like the game, is that the game is flawed. The game has its issues. This is the same thing for me if you were to go look at like Starfield. I like Starfield. I think Starfield is a good game, but a lot of people would disagree with me, and a lot of people that would agree with me would also agree that Starfield is a flawed product. It is definitely got a lot of improvement that it needs to have happen to it, and it is far from perfect, right? So same thing I think with Avowed. I think Avowed is something where they set out to make a good RPG. I think unfortunately it did get subverted by the creatives at some point in the process, and it ended up as a completely different game than it was originally being pitched for. Or we can say that maybe it was always intended to be this way, and that they instead tried to build hype by selling everybody on a lie. That is to say, the initial announcement trailer and the overall tone and feeling of it were completely not what they intended the end game to be like, and they knew it, but they tried to do it just to garner attention for their new IP. So it could be either of those two things. I don't know, but neither of them is good. Either they tried to sell everyone down the river, or they themselves are the victim of their own employees kind of like warping what the original intention of the project was. So it's like, unfortunately, for better or worse, this is a really bad look for Obsidian at this point. I think a lot of people have still kind of nostalgia glasses for New Vegas and stuff like that, but a lot of people don't realize that, like, for one, part of what makes New Vegas so good And I've seen people criticize it because they're like, oh, you know, like there's no interactivity. There's like in Avowed, right? Like there's no interactivity with the world. NPCs just stand around. They don't move around and do their daily tasks. You can't kill anyone really. That's an NPC. You can't interact with them. You can't steal from them or anything like that. And they're like, why isn't this the case? This is what we expect. All of those are Bethesda mechanics. So if we look back at like New Vegas, a lot of what makes New Vegas good is the actual Bethesda and like creation engine type stuff, right? Like that is what actually does propel it. Now, don't get me wrong. That makes it sound like Obsidian had nothing to do with it. Obsidian